of course, when they see me, then they think, oh no, you're not German, you're not from here, obviously. But when I tell them I'm from Laos, then there's another question coming.
Yeah, because it's
Well,
not exactly true, right?
exactly. Yeah. My parents are from Laos. They came to Germany and then, but you're not German, right? Like you're not from Germany. I was born and raised in Germany. Yeah, but my parents, and then like, yeah, but you're not German. Like you're not German. And yeah.
Welcome to Proudly Asian, a podcast series that tells bold and proud stories of Asians by Asians. My name is Isabel, your podcast host, and I'm here to find stories that challenge biases we face every day. There's never just one way to look at Asians. This podcast will take you through a deep dive into the life stories, struggles, and triumphs of young Asians around the world. On today's episode, we have Khoulap, the host of German podcast Khouliconnects. Born and raised in Germany, Khoulap had to navigate the intersection of her Lao heritage and European upbringing through moments that often raised questions about identity and belonging. She joins us to talk about growing up in Germany with Lao parents, Asian representation in Europe, and what it means to be both Asian and European. Welcome back to Proudly Asian. Well, continuing our Asians in Europe mini-series, we will be taking you all the way to Germany, where we speak with Khoulap of the Khouliconnects podcast. Welcome to Proudly Asian, Khoulap. How are you?
Hello, or as we say in German, Guten Morgen.
Guten Morgen, yes.
Guten Morgen, Isabel.
Yes. Thank you so much for stopping by the show. And I know that you are currently in Germany. Which city are you in?
Yeah, I'm in Dortmund. For those who are very interested into soccer or know the international soccer football club Borussia Dortmund, this is actually the city where I was born and raised. So yeah, I think this is something where people maybe have a relationship to it and know, oh, okay, Dortmund. Yeah.
I feel like, like whenever like my European friends or like my Asian European friends, whenever they introduce themselves, like they would say people, oh, where they grew up. But then normally people outside of Europe, they might look a bit confused. But then when they start name dropping the football teams, that's when people are like, oh.
Yeah, that's the city. Exactly.
Yeah. So that's a nice introduction. But I mean, to get back to, what about you, Khoulap? I mean, to get our listeners up to speed with getting to know a little bit about who you are, maybe we can start with the basic questions that we ask every single guest on the show. So, Khoulap, could you tell us about your background? Who are you? What are you? And where did you grow up, which you just mentioned?
Yeah. So first of all, and that's also what I've been saying before this, thank you so much for inviting me and for having this platform of Proudly Asian to give, Eurasians and in general, Asians worldwide to share their story. I'm really a big fan of your podcast. I think the episodes are very inspiring and, so I feel very honored to be here. So for the listeners out there, I feel very grateful. Like you were saying, I'm Khoulap. I was born and raised in Germany. My parents are from Laos. I think finding Lao people or in general, even Lao podcasters is like finding rare Pokemon somewhere. So my parents, they came to Germany by the end of the 70s in 1979. The family side from my dad, first of all. During the Vietnam War, my grandpa took all of his 7 children, my grandma to Germany. He decided that it would be the best decision to go out of the country because of the political change, becoming communistic. And just by realizing that the condition is going to change in Laos. And the special story is that he worked at a mechanic at the military base at the airport. So he was repairing like the airplanes, machines. He was traveling around Singapore, got sent to the United States. He was in France for a while. So he traveled quite a lot in his position. That's why he also realized, oh, there's also like a different world out there and maybe a better world also for my children and my family. And I think many people ask me that, okay, why Germany? Why not going to America or like Australia? Like, why going to Germany or even why not going to France? Because Laos was colonized by the French people, right? And the answer is actually, quite simple, because the International Red Cross organization was in Laos from Germany. And they offered my grandpa, hey, if you want to come to Germany, we can take your family as soon as possible. We have capacity to take all of them. And I think for America, he would have to wait like 2 more weeks or 2 more months. And then he was like, okay, because it's
Germany
faster.
it is.
Germany it is. We can go out here of the refugee camp in Thailand, in Nong Khai, as soon as possible. And I don't know if you know, but I watched that, I think recently, some YouTube videos about the refugee camp in Nong Khai in Thailand. And the conditions, like not really nice, hygienic conditions. So I think that, he thought, okay, how can I go out here as soon as possible? And then, it was Germany. And they came, I think, in December in 79. So during the winter time, very cold, as you know, Southeast Asia, different kind of season, weather. And I think that must have been such a culture shock for my dad's family. Yeah, and he was 15 years old when he came to Germany. Yeah.
Wow, what a story. And I mean, it's just always like it makes me always emotional to hear about like every different family, like of Asian diaspora, the journey, like going to the country that they eventually settled. And I gotta say, your grandpa had a really cool job. Like I always have so much respect for like the mechanics, the engineers, and that is absolutely amazing. But I mean, just out of curiosity, did he continue doing that after moving to Germany?
No, I think like as many immigrants, when they come to another country, I can only speak for Germany. Many degrees or many things that you've learned before are maybe not valid in Germany or recognized. So there were specific kind of jobs that immigrants could do, which was like more becoming an electrician or maybe going to another different field. And that's actually what he did. He did like a training, and then he changed into being an electrician and then doing something completely else. And I think, started completely new, having a new job position.
Wow. And during the winter months as well, it must be quite a change in terms of like climate and all. Yeah. But since you mentioned you were born and raised in Germany, I'm curious, how many languages do you speak, Khoulap?
My mother language, of course, is, I would say, or first language is German. Then Lao, because at home my dad forced us to speak only Lao, because the, let's say, outside bubble was completely in German, media in German, German friends, German class. So he was like very picky on speaking Lao at home. Then at high school, we could choose a language, either like French or Spanish. And I chose French because we had a lot of, like, my aunt is living in France, my uncle, I have cousins in France. So it was very important to me to learn French so that I could talk to them, And it's kind of funny, when they speak Lao, they speak it with a French accent. And when I speak Lao, I speak it with a German accent. But
that's
funny. So French. And I've studied... I did my bachelor degree near to Amsterdam. So I also didn't study in Germany. I've studied abroad. So in the Netherlands, close to Amsterdam, in Enschede, in a small town, around about 1.5 hours from Amsterdam. So Dutch. Wow. So what is it? English, German, Lao, Dutch, and French. A little bit 5.
That is impressive. Wow.
Um,
Wow. And you did mention that your dad made it kind of a rule within the family to speak only
yeah.
Lao. So I'm curious, like, what was it like really, like growing up in Germany for you? I can imagine there must be a lot of like navigating between the German culture, the German way of doing things, but at home, your dad also tried to preserve that Lao culture. So what was it really like? And what was the food that you ate growing up?
Yeah. I think that's a very interesting, but also, important question. Actually, this is a question I've never asked myself when I was younger, but I think being older now and reflecting more about my childhood and how I've been growing up, I realized, oh wow, it's really special actually, and not maybe very common how my German friends grew up. Yeah, as I said, like we grew up in a small town, let's say near to Dortmund, because Dortmund is a little bit a bigger city. And my brother and I, we were the only Asian children in high school, also the only Asian child, like in my class. And I remember like always when the teacher was reading the name list, always like, oh, there's a name coming now. I cannot pronounce. Is it a girl or boy? I was like, yep, it's me, Khoulap. And I knew always, okay, yeah, it's all about
Always
me.
having your name butchered by different
Exactly.
teachers. Yeah.
And then always, of course, the question by other children, where are your parents coming from? Also a little bit of mobbing, like, do your parents eat cats and dogs? Ni hao, xing shang shong, arigato. And I was like, oh, wow. Like it started already in the kindergarten when I was very small. And, yeah, having those questions all the time. And then like, oh, you kind of look exotic. Like, where's Laos? Is it a city? And, what do people speak there? And yeah, I was always like in the 90s, like early 2000s, always like confronted with that. So that was kind of like my childhood or like being in class. But I have actually a very special story, and this is one I like to share also with my friends. I remember in high school, I had like an art homework, and I was 7 or 8 years old, and I needed glue for that art homework. And in Germany, on Sunday, everything is closed. It's like all the shops are closed. It's a quiet day. You cannot get anything. And then I told my dad, like, I need to do this homework for Monday and I need glue. And he was like, yeah, then take sticky rice. Like we have sticky rice at home. And as a small child, yeah, you're so innocent, you know, so you believe what your dad is saying and like, okay. And then I took sticky rice and I was like gluing my homework with sticky rice. And yeah, and then on the next day I handed in my homework, and then my teacher said, like, why is your paper so like it looks so weird? And I was like, yeah, I did it with sticky rice, and I was so proud. I did it with sticky rice. And then my teacher was like, okay, yeah, okay. Yeah, maybe the story describes like my childhood of like growing up with Lao parents and going to a German school.
Definitely. I mean, I actually really appreciate that creativity. Like I didn't even think of that until you mentioned it. So I was like, oh wow. Actually now I'm gonna remember rice is going to work if I'm desperate like to glue something. And in a way, like I feel like it could give maybe like artists who have that Asian background a little bit of idea in terms of how to integrate like Western and Asian techniques. So maybe your dad is secretly an artist himself.
Yeah, and I mean it's also even now vegan, right? If you would sell it now, you could say, hey, you can also eat your glue, so it's kind of like organic. Yeah, but yeah.
What a lovely story to summarize your childhood. But I mean, since we're on food, I'm also curious, like, what kind of breakfast you had growing up, and when you were at home, did you have maybe like German food or mostly Lao food?
Yeah. So when it was actually a mixture, I think for lunch, like my mom did most of the time, let's say German or like even like pasta or pizza kind of stuff. But in the evening, like mainly like Lao food, in the weekends, Lao food. And I think Lao food, if I would have to describe Lao food, I would say it's a mixture of having also Vietnamese food in it, but also Thai food. But I think the main difference is that we eat with sticky rice, that we eat with our hands, that we have papaya salad, but with a fermented fish sauce, which is called bedak. So this is like the main difference of a Thai papaya salad, but also a Lao papaya salad. Eating spicy as well. We also have pho from the Vietnamese kitchen, also banh mi. This is also something that we have. So yeah, I would say since Laos is quite located in the middle of like Thailand and then Vietnam, Cambodia, I think it has like different influences and impacts on food as well. But if I would have to describe it, then of course sticky rice, papaya salad with bedak, spicy, a lot of fresh herbs, eating with your hands. So I would say that mainly. And this is also what my mom also cooked all the time. So my brother and I, we were used to eat Lao food, to speak Lao at home, hearing Lao karaoke music from my parents. And it was kind of like living in two different worlds, you know, like Hannah Montana. And in the weekends, we also visited the friends from my parents. They also had children in our age. They also immigrated together to Germany back then. So they created kind of like their own community and own bubble where we went every weekend to be with them, parents singing karaoke, being drunk, eating spicy papaya salad like all the time, and children playing around. So yeah,
Wow.
The Lao community or culture was actually quite integrated in our childhood.
Wow. So you would say actually where you grew up, there was definitely a little bit of like a Lao community around. Like you didn't ever feel like you were the only Lao family in the town that you grew up in.
Yeah, we would have to drive actually like 1.5 hours for sure. So in my town where I was living, there were no Lao people, let's say, but maybe driving an hour further where the friends from my dad lived, and then there were like many, let's say, Lao people. But we really had to go to family gatherings or meetings or events to meet other Lao people. It was not like that I had, for example, I don't know, Koreatown or Japantown or Chinatown where I could go and then be with other Asians. It was more like, okay, there's this family dinner or party. We are going there and then we're going to meet them.
I see. You still have to kind of like make your way to like other Lao families. I see. But, you know, like growing up, like you mentioned, you were kind of like living two lives every day. Did you see yourself more of like a European or an Asian?
Oh, that's also a very interesting question. I think when I was a teenager and also when I was a student or still studying, I think I always thought about being more German than being Lao, or like that I thought, hey, I can only be one side, let's say, or not be both. But I think I realized when I studied like international business, meeting other international students, studying in English, meeting also other Asian students as well, then I realized, hey, that's kind of nice that I have both sides as well. And also other Asian friends, they also told me, wow, it's so nice that you have been growing up in Europe and that you have parents from Asia, and that's so cool. And then I started, hey, maybe it's not a weakness. Maybe it's also a strength or like a gift to have both. And I think the specific time where I realized that when I lived and worked in Singapore, and I think maybe when you know Singapore, then being an expat there, meeting a lot of other Asians from different countries also at work, there was one supervisor, she said to me like, oh yeah, you're Eurasian. And I never heard that term before. And I was like, what do you mean by Eurasian? And she was like, yeah, you are Eurasian because you were born and raised in Europe, but you have parents from Asia, so you are Eurasian. And I was like, oh, maybe I'm that, and maybe I'm Eurasian. I don't know. But I would say I feel like that I'm both, let's say. Yeah.
That's good. That's good that at some point, you know, like growing up, you kind of recognized the strength of being like not just one but both, which
Yeah.
I think for a lot of our guests on Proudly Asian, some of them might not even realize until like much later in life, when they maybe like moved out of their hometown, or like when they were more exposed to like other friends who also came from kind of this like similar multicultural background. But definitely I agree with you, it's a superpower. And it's just so lovely to be able to understand the nuanced context of like different cultures, and you're able to sort of like, while not entirely fitting in from the appearance perspective, but you can also blend in culturally wherever you go. But like, kind of like a follow-up question for that, has anyone ever told you that you're neither Asian nor German, and how did that make you feel?
I think not directly that someone said, hey, you're not German to me, or you're not Lao to me. But I think I had a lot of situations where I had the feeling of like maybe not belonging. I think when I traveled to Laos and to visit my family there, I think Lao people realized that, oh, she's not from here, or like she was not born here, because I think the way we dress, the way we walk, the way we even present ourselves also, of being, let's say, a woman growing up in Germany or somewhere else in comparison, let's say, to my cousin, I think they realized, oh, then they say to me, oh, nah, you're more German than Lao. And I was like, no, I'm also Lao. And they say, no, when you speak Lao, we hear your German accent, or the way you dress, the way you walk, the way you talk, the way you communicate. Since, let's say, the Lao woman is more indirect, they're more quiet, more, let's say, being the submissive role, of course. And I think this is also a feeling where I realized, oh, okay, maybe I'm a little bit different because I was not born in Laos. And there was also one thing my dad always told me and my brother when I was 15 or 16 years old at the kitchen table. My dad liked to talk a lot at the kitchen table, like telling his own wisdoms, like trying to share to us. And me and my brother, we were always so annoyed, like, oh, what is he saying again, this old man? And he was always like, keep saying like, you guys have to take all the opportunities that you have here in Germany. You're so lucky that you were born here. You always have to give 200%. 100% is not enough. If your German friend next to you is giving 100%, I can assure you guys, you have to give more. You have to give double, so that people realize you, recognize you. And me and my brother, we were always like, hey, why are you saying this? We are German. Like, why do I have to give more than my German friend next to me? And when I had my first corporate job, like when I was 24, I realized, like after university, I realized, oh, wow. I realized, yeah, he's right. Like I realized that, yeah, I had to do more. I had to push myself. I had to, I don't know, convince my supervisors and colleagues that I'm not this shy, innocent, submissive, quiet girl, that I'm also, I don't know, communicative, that I can do the presentation, that I can do this project or this. And then I realized, yeah, he was right. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that probably talks to the struggle a lot of like people from the Asia diaspora communities around the world as well. Like a lot of them also talk to the experience of like, even they might be doing the same thing or like asking the same question as their potentially Caucasian counterparts, they will still be seen in a different light, as in like, oh, why are you
Yeah.
asking this question? Is this your Asian way of, understanding things, or Asian way of doing things, despite there's absolutely no difference with the white counterparts? I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that. But then, like there are all these like moments where you felt like you might not belong 100%, either in Germany or in Laos. But going back to your experience in Germany, have you ever experienced any like blatant racism as well?
Yeah, I think this is also, a very difficult question, but also a little bit kind of sad, because I think it also shows the reality of growing up somewhere else where all the people, let's say, look different than you, or maybe have like whiter skin, blonde hair, blue eyes, and then you're like that only Asian child in class. And like I was saying in the beginning, of course, by other children, do your parents eat cats and dogs? Like, how do I pronounce your name? Like, it started very early when I was in kindergarten. And I think even when you are a teenager and you're very insecure already about yourself and outer appearance, I mean, we all have been through that when we were younger and comparing ourselves. Like, I also did one podcast episode about this in German with the title, when I was younger, I wished I had blonde hair and blue eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that title says so much because I compared myself, of course, to my friends. And I was thinking, oh, why do I always have to explain myself, where I'm coming from? Why is their name so easy? And I always have to explain my name. And not that I hated my heritage, but I was like, yeah, why is it so difficult for me, you know?
Yeah.
And now thinking back, I'm like, hey, no, you should be proud of like having a different name, having like this heritage, you know. But it was definitely a process because also in media, everything was in German, not that many international friends. So I think when I was younger, it was more, but now when I got older, I think regarding racism is, I think, less than when I was a teenager or when I was younger.
Yeah, now you're also more mature and you're more
Yeah.
experienced in dealing with maybe some of these questions. Maybe they're not coming from a place of racism, but just maybe pure ignorance. Because like you said, there isn't a lot of representation of people like yourself in German media as well. So I guess it's kind of natural that people will have questions. People will look confused when they see someone who looks completely different to them. But, you know, like, now that you are a grown up, have you been sort of like trying to maybe like integrate a little more, or like trying to get to know more about your Asian roots? And have you been having a hard time perhaps mingling with Lao or Asians from Asia? Because you also mentioned you lived and worked in Singapore as well, right?
Yeah, I think also luckily with social media, I think, and also the younger generation, I think now it's more coming that people, I don't know, drink matcha or going out to eat pho, or like it's kind of like hip now, you know, like
it's the cool thing to do.
It's so
now.
cool. Even like traveling to Southeast Asia, backpacking there, Bali, Laos, Thailand, like, oh my God, mango sticky rice and all that stuff. And then I realized, yeah, like the teenagers now and like the younger generation, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, it's completely different than in the past. And luckily it changed in that direction. I think by living and studying already in an international field, meeting other international students as well, and then by living and working in Singapore, my friend group is kind of diverse, let's say. Like I don't only have German friends. I still have some friends from Singapore. I still have some friends close to Amsterdam. So it's very international, let's say. Last year, for example, I went to a wedding of a Singaporean friend of mine in south of France because her husband is French. He works in Singapore as an expat, and they met there, and then they decided to do their wedding there. And me and my boyfriend, we went there, and then there were her Singaporean friends, his French friends, some friends from Switzerland, UK, Hong Kong. It was such like an international event.
United Nations there.
Exactly, in south of France. And I realized, that my friend group is very diverse, let's say. And also by having my podcast, Khouliconnects, and I think this is the beautiful side of social media and also how we both connected, Isabel.
Yes.
Connecting and finding other Asian podcasters as well. And that gave me the opportunity to also connect to other Lao American podcasters as well, meeting Asian podcasters from Australia, meeting you like worldwide, let's say, just by going out there, doing a podcast, posting some reels, and then being recognized or seen by other Asian people out there. And I think this is also how I connected with other Asian people as well, Asian podcasters, and extending my bubble, let's say, virtually. Yeah.
Yes, I agree. Despite there are a lot of like negative things that come out of social media, but I agree, like that connection, being able to get to know, like Asians from around, like, and their growing up experiences on social media, being able to connect with them, talk to them directly. That is such a precious experience. And that's also what I love about having gone on this Proudly Asian journey. It's literally a Proudly Asian journey for me because, like when I started this podcast, I would say I did not have that like 100% definite answer of what Proudly Asian means. But I was also learning so much from the guests that I speak to, like yourself, growing up, there were a lot of doubts around like, oh, is it just me who feels this way? Like you mentioned, why didn't I have blonde hair? Why didn't I look more like my classmates? There must be something wrong with me. And to know that other Asians around the world, they felt the same growing up. It was just this empowering moment that was like, oh, wow, I was not alone. I was not, alone all along. So it's such a beautiful experience. And I mean, in terms of like integrating with cultures, right? I just remember I have a follow-up question around like integrating into the German culture. Like from speaking with some other of my Asian European friends, they also mentioned like, oh, I mean, I would always ask them, like, did you ever have difficulty integrating into that European culture around you where you grew up? But then they all had kind of like a similar answer, as in like, okay, if you speak that language natively, people do not really have a problem with you looking slightly different. Is that the experience for you in Germany as well?
Yeah, I think being born and raised in Germany, growing up with German, I think I integrated quite well already in Germany because I had like mainly my friends. I had a lot of German friends speaking German, like German without an accent. But I would agree with the sentence of saying when you speak German with an accent, maybe then people realize, oh, you're not from here or you were not born here. But that doesn't mean that they treat you then different, I would say. I think it's just that they realize, okay, maybe she was not born here. But when they hear my brother and I like speak German, then they already know, oh, she was born here, because when we speak it, then there's no accent. So I think when it comes to integrating, that it was, how to say that, kind of smooth because of like growing up here, going here to kindergarten and high school. I think when it comes to elderly people, I remember one situation when I was one time at a hospital, and then I think the nurse was saying to me, oh, your German is very good. I was like, yeah, of course it's good. I was born here. And then like, I was like, I was so confused. Like, why is she saying this to me? And I think, for some elderly people, you still have to do a little bit of teaching and like saying to them, yeah, of course, because I'm German, but for them, it's like, oh, her German is very good. Like, like, yeah, of course it's good. This is sometimes like some moments where I realize, oh, I still have to do sometimes the work of like teaching them and saying to them, yeah, because I was born here. So
I see. No. Yeah. I was just curious if like German people also place an emphasis into, like actually speaking the language, because maybe this experience does not apply to you, but I've also had from some friends who moved to Germany for work later on. I think they had to fulfill a certain language requirement, for example, getting to a certain level of the German language. And if they don't get to it, I think they might not be able to get the citizenship or like the right to work or something. But then before they get to that level, like they felt like they were also not treated very nicely by other maybe German government workers or admin people, because they might have that whole attitude of like, oh, you are just like eating our benefits, like work on your German so you can get a job already.
Yeah, when you're mentioning those kind of examples or going in that direction, of course, 100%. Because when my dad also came to Germany when he was 15 years old, like, of course, he had to learn German from scratch. Like, there were no dictionaries of Lao German, Lao. I mean, still, it's very rare to find. So my dad taught himself like German with a cinnamon book. So when he knew a word and he was like, oh, okay, maybe I know this word, then I also can recognize the other words. And so it was very important also by getting the citizenship of like learning German, speaking German. Even when it comes to bureaucracy stuff, it's still like, even like Germans don't understand it 100% because it's so written, so difficult, and different words, and like still for me it's sometimes difficult. And then I think, wow, like my mom, for her, I always had to translate like letters coming from the government to my mom, explaining it to her. Yeah, they want this, they want that. Or even when it comes to taxes, doing your taxes. And yeah, so for sure. So my dad, he really like had to learn German. My grandpa had to learn German. And later on, my dad also, he was the only one who also studied biochemistry in Germany and had a bachelor degree as a first immigrant child. And yeah, so maybe this is also something I have to tell here, that this is not common, and that it was a hard way for him as well to become like a working in a biochemistry field and then in the pharma industry. He was actually, when you go to the doctor and they take your blood and then they send it to a how do you say that?
Lab.
A lab,
exactly.
Yeah. He was the one analyzing your blood and like checking it if it was right, okay, and then giving the recommendation to the hospital or to the doctor. And yeah, so he had to learn German for sure for that to get that far. Otherwise, no chance.
Yeah. Your dad is such a cool guy. He has amazing life wisdom, and he has also achieved, and overcome all these challenges to get to the work that he did. That's absolutely crazy. I cannot imagine how they
because
did
in
that.
Comparison, like my mom is the complete other example, right? Like her German was not as fluent as from my dad. She spoke with an accent. My mom had a part-time job. She was working in the same lab company with my dad, but she was like cleaning the equipment, setting the equipment up for all the tests and everything. But she was working part-time, so mainly she was taking care of me and my brother, doing the food and like household work and everything. But her German wasn't fluent. She couldn't drive a car, so my dad was mainly the main provider. So with my mom, you could see the typical example of being an immigrant parent, of not being fluent in that language, needing her husband, needing her children to translate. So that was, I think, very difficult for her. And I would say she never fully integrated in Germany 100%.
That's also very important context for people to know as well. Sometimes when they judge people by their language ability or how well they integrate into the culture, sometimes it's not because the people are being lazy. It's because of circumstances. It's because of the different family roles that they took on. So definitely, I really appreciate that context, and more people need to know about it. Like, there's never just like, it's not like they need to get to the background story basically before they judge, or maybe they shouldn't even judge to begin with.
Exactly, they shouldn't even judge in the beginning. Or how do we say that? Never judge like a book by its cover, or something like that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
because clearly they went through a lot of hard stuff that maybe those who judge never even had to go through. So yeah, wow, I appreciate you telling us about all these background story. But now I would like to talk about your podcast specifically, Khouliconnects. You obviously, like you mentioned, you started this German language podcast, but I'm just wondering, like, what was the reason behind starting it, and what is the show really about?
Yeah, so Khouliconnects was born, let's say, 3 years ago, 2022 in November. And the main reason was actually I was burnt out by the age of 28 because I worked in a Big Four company before that. And I was jobless during that time. Like, I quit my job during that time without having another job immediately after. And I was in therapy in that time. I got burnt out. Like, I was only working a lot, not eating enough, not sleeping enough, till my doctor told me, hey, I'm going to put you on sick leave now. And you have to shut down your laptop, your mobile phone, everything, and just tell your supervisor that you're on sick leave. And I was like, no, I can't. There's this project. There's this deadline. I was so stressed. And she was like, yes, you have to, because for your health. Like, it's, you're 28 and you already have symptoms of being burnt out. So Yeah, so actually that was the main reason why I had time, and I always like listened to podcasts doing back then already to Asian Bosca, for example, podcasters from America. I listened to that, and I always was curious, like, in maybe sharing my story, also maybe doing a podcast. And then I ordered this mic like secondhand, watched YouTube tutorials, what do I need for a podcast and how to do a podcast, how to edit. Yeah, my first podcast episode is called like Being Burned Out by 28. And that was my first German podcast episode 3 years ago. I think by now, I have almost 30 podcast episodes out now.
Wow.
And yeah, actually, this is not my main job, right? Like I'm working in corporate 9 to 5. I do this in the weekends after work as a side project, as a hobby, just for fun. And like you were saying, it kind of started being on Instagram, connecting with other podcasters as well, having friends on it. I also went to a lot of podcast events within Germany, going out there, meeting and connecting with other German podcasters as well. And then meeting Ask the Duo podcast, Lao American podcasters as well, being a guest on their podcast, and then helping each other of like getting more awareness. And
Yes.
what is the podcast about? I think sharing my story growing up with Lao parents in Germany, but also not only the Asian perspective, I would say, also talking with friends about going to therapy, or maybe deciding for new life choices as well, living abroad, starting their own business, sharing personal experiences, and just connecting with each other. Like the name is like Khouliconnects, connecting with stories. Yeah, because my closest friends, they don't call me Khoulap, they call me Khouli. So the short, so Khouli. And then I thought, maybe connecting with other stories. So then Khouliconnects. And that's why the podcast is called Khouliconnects. Yeah.
Nice. And I gotta say, those are really important topics that I honestly think, like, I mean, obviously these days there are a lot of podcasts that talk about mental health, right? But then I think still the mental health space or like Asian mental health still remains kind of like a slightly more niche topic because I do agree. I mean, even when I was talking to different guests, I also came to learn that, oh, wow, actually, when it comes to mental health, it's very important to factor in that cultural factor, you know, being able to find a therapist or a psychologist who is culturally competent to understand the struggles that you went through from your specific cultural or socioeconomic backgrounds is very important. So I'm so glad that you are doing this in German language. And I'm wondering, like, after you started doing this, were there a lot of maybe like Asians in Germany who would reach out and say, hey, thanks for doing this. Like, you basically spoke to my life struggles or something like that.
I do. It's very mixed, just like of Lao Germans as well, who are saying, the sticky rice story, I can relate to that. Or we also had karaoke parties and like, oh, thank you for sharing your story. Like, we also had to take out of our shoes and like only walk with slippers in our house, and eating papaya salad with bedeck. So yeah, there's this Lao German community, I would say, but then also other Asian Germans, especially when we talk about like working in corporate as an Asian woman as well, like the reputation, the prejudice that you also maybe face of like, or even Thai massage and like all those stuff of being an exotic woman. And I also have podcast episodes about that, talking with other Asian Germans about this issue, how they feel when they got to work, and sharing our experiences about that, and how to overcome those struggles, and how to present yourself in a different way so that your German supervisor cannot put you down, and to be more confident, you know? So we talk about those topics, and I had a lot of Asian Germans who are texting me on Instagram and saying, wow, I feel the same. Or Khoulap, I have this supervisor, she's saying this to me. What would you recommend? Can I say to her? Did you had a similar situation at work? And I was like, wow, like, yeah. So because sometimes, I don't know if you have the same feeling, you put something out there and you don't get immediately feedback or response, even like having especially having a podcast or putting it out there on Spotify, and then you think, is even someone listening to it?
No one cares.
Yeah, of course you see Spotify analytics, right? But still, like getting the response immediately of like someone who's saying, "Hey, Isabel, I just listened to your podcast while doing dishes," and because this is what I have done actually. I did my dishes and I listened to your podcast with Gia Wang, the new podcast episode. But
yes, I agree. Like that's not how the social media algorithms work as well. Like when you put something out there, you don't get that immediate reaction or feedback. I mean, the best case would be like it will take a couple of days, but most likely, even for myself, like some of the like people who would tell me the most impactful episodes, they would get discovered like a year or a few months after it was initially released. I had some episodes, they started like accumulating even more views, like 52K views, but then like I released that episode like would be like a year and a half ago. And that specific episode I'm talking about is this Korean guy who grew up in Ghana, and I think at some point it reached Ghana, and I guess people were just kind of like mind blown about it, as in like an East Asian guy who is able to talk to the African or Ghanaian culture so fluently, and also address maybe some of the racism, not just towards Asians, but also towards like African people as well. So I think maybe that's why, but it's lovely to kind of like hear from people who reached out personally, maybe a year after they listened to the podcast, saying how that sort of maybe healed them, impacted them. It's nice. I guess you can probably relate that that's why you keep doing this as well. And now you're also expanding into slightly more English language, because from what you just talked about, I wish I understood German so I could listen to your podcast. I want to hear about, all those topics.
Yeah, you're actually not the first one who is saying this. Like actually also the other Lao American podcasters were also saying, wow, your podcast episode of wishing having blonde hair, blue eyes, and sharing your thoughts, like, wow, those are like very cool and important topics. And I was like, maybe it's coming more with like English episodes. But like I was saying, I think mainly, of course, it's like in German, because I also want to create more awareness in Germany, I think, for those topics. And also having, being someone who has the voice of like, saying it out loud. But also because of my international friend group, they are saying, like, especially from Singapore and the Netherlands, like, but we want to have it in English. Like, we cannot understand. I was like, I know. But step by step.
Nice. I mean, since you also mentioned you want to create that Asian representation in like German language media, right? I'm also curious, like, what do you think about the current landscape of Asian representation in European media or German media?
I think it's still not as strong as I would say in the APAC area or like in America. I think when I think about the Lao American podcasters I have met on social media, like they have already a Lao festival in California. There's a big community. And I think in America, there's so much, I don't know, they're more deep into that topics already. And I think in Europe, it's coming, but still it takes time.
Non-existent.
I think it, like you were saying, it's very like difficult to find other Eurasian podcasters or someone who's like on social media putting themselves out there. And I think also depending on which country also in Europe, like is it Norway, is it France, is it Germany? Like it is also very different depending which country in Europe. So I would say it comes more step by step, but still I would say we could do more, I think. But I think with social media, 2025, 2024, I think with going on podcast events or maybe going to specific events to meet more people, networking. But still I would say it's a little bit slow, the progress. It takes more time.
Because we also talked about how culturally Asian Europeans, also depending on which country they're in, sometimes their personality or the culture might not be supporting that, like putting yourself out there, be loud, talk about yourself. I mean, unlike maybe some of our American friends, they're a little bit more eager to talk about that, which is amazing. And I think some of the Asian European communities can learn a trick or two from our Asian American American friends as well in terms of how to advocate for themselves. Yeah.
Because when I was looking on social media, even in the beginning, I knew that podcast Asian Boss Girl, right? I listened to that back then, 2018, 2019. But I didn't find like any Asian German podcasters who did like those specific topics or just sharing stories, how their parents came to Germany, immigrated here, or even like finding other Lao people just sharing their story. So I realized that there's definitely like a lack in the market.
Yes. And the reason why I'm doing this special series highlighting Asians in Europe is that I also feel like because people don't hear from you guys often, people either forget or they are not aware that you guys exist, and they would just think that, like Asian diaspora, it's only about Asian Americans. And I would love to make it a point that Asian Americans is one of the Asian diaspora communities out there. Yeah. But there are so many other Asian diasporas who are very much present for generations in Europe, in Australia, in South America, and also Africa. So this is why I really want to like make this happen. And I'm so grateful that you are open to speak and you're also having your podcast to share like your story and other like Asian Germans stories. But I mean, here's another slightly more personal question for you, Khoulap. Okay. If you get to talk to your younger self, what would you want to tell her, with all the insights that you currently have?
Yeah. Oh, this is also a very emotional question, right? Yes. Like of reflecting. Wow. When I think about my younger self of like, I don't know, when I think about the 16 years old Khoulap or like maybe 21, 22 of comparing myself all the time. And yeah, I would like to tell her, just take your time. You don't have to, you don't have to rush. You don't have to achieve and get everything. It's okay when you have a moment where you realize, oh, that's kind of a lot, or it's overwhelming. Like, because I always had like this pressure of my parents of like going that straight line, studying, working abroad, studying abroad, like working in consulting, getting a job immediately. And like this pressure of, oh, my immigrant parents, they had it not that good as me, and I have to keep pushing. Yeah, but when I got burnt out by 28, I realized, hey, obviously this is not the right way, or maybe not the way which is like healthy to me. And maybe this is not a path I want to continue. Maybe I want to do something with more purpose, with more reason behind it also in my job. And I would like to tell her like, just don't pressure yourself too much and just be thankful for what you have. And having our parents, and I mean, they are also living their life for the first time, right? Like they have seen and they have been through stuff you don't even know, or you haven't even seen. Like I cannot even imagine how it was for my 15-year-old dad to be in that refugee camp in Nong Khai, then coming from Thailand to Germany, being in a refugee camp during winter time, 4 different seasons, having another language, writing, reading, so different. And also be more patient with them. Like, because as a teenager, I was always like, so annoying. Why does he keep saying this? And my mom, why can my mom not cook? Why cannot my mom cook more German food? Why do we have to eat Lao food during dinner time? My German friends also have like, I don't know, potato dishes and other dishes. And I wish I could tell her, like, just appreciate what you have and also what your parents give to you, because that comes quite late, like where you realize, oh yeah, I get it now, But when I was younger, no.
Yeah, that's such a beautiful message. And now it's time for us to move on to the next segment, which is called Rapid Fires.
Yay, I know about it already.
You are prepared. So in this segment, as usual, I'll be asking my guests biased questions that they got asked at some points in life. And for Khoulap's experience, it would be maybe some questions around her Lao German identity. So Khoulap, are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Yes. So all right, without further ado, let's do question 1. Where are you really from?
Yeah, I think this is a question I got all the time. Yeah, where are you really from? And because, of course, when they see me, then they think, oh, no, you're not German, you're not from here, obviously. But when I tell them I'm from Laos, then there's another question coming.
Yeah. Because it's not exactly true, right?
Exactly. Yeah. My parents are from Laos. They came to Germany, and then but you're not German, right? Like, you're not from Germany. I was born and raised in Germany. Yeah, but my parents, and then like, yeah, but you're not German. Like, you're not German. And
it's tough. It's tough. Like, whenever you have to kind of like juggle the yes and no.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And next job, is Laos a city? Where is Laos?
Yeah, this is the story we talked about in the beginning, also when it comes to racism, or maybe also not knowing. I think back then, even like knowing something about Laos, and I have to say Laos is also not that presented in media, right? Like Thailand, Cambodia, Vietnam. When a lot of people are traveling, they mostly go to Thailand, they mostly go to Vietnam, or maybe Cambodia because of Angkor Wat. But many people, they leave out Laos, actually. And I think it just came by the time that people explore Laos more. But back then, when I was younger or going to high school in the early 2000s, it was really like, Laos? What do they speak there? What kind of language? What do they eat? Like, yeah.
Wow. And it's funny because like you were born and raised in Germany, so maybe you were not even the best person to tell them all about it because you were still learning, right?
Yeah, and just traveling there with my parents when I was even like younger then, and not like, I was like, I just have been there once by myself, so what can I tell you about it? I don't know.
And suddenly you were the Laos ambassador in class.
Yeah, suddenly now. But back then, even like explaining sticky rice, like,
it's like, why do you eat sticky rice? And I'm just like, I don't know. That's just what they eat.
Even like papaya salad with fermented fish sauce. Who would do that? Like, I don't know.
Gosh,
exactly.
those kinds of questions. But next question, what language do people in Laos speak, and what do they eat over there? It's kind of like a continuation of what we talked about.
Yeah, exactly. Same thing. Like, I think I had some children who were saying to me, oh, Laos rhymes with chaos. So do they speak a chaotic language then? Because of like, children can be so mean. I don't know where they have this from, but it was always a joke in German that they say, oh, in Laos there's chaos, or like something like that. And then like, do they speak? I don't know. And then they mix something up, and
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow, that was really tough. I can imagine. And next question, how come your German is so good?
Yeah, I think that also relates to that story with the nurse being at the hospital where she was saying, how is your German so good? And I think it was a phase where I thought, oh, maybe that's over now. But I also got that recently as well when I went to a job consulting appointment, and then also like, oh, do you have a visa? And I was like, what? Like, do you have a visa in Germany to work here? And I was like, I am German. I have the German citizenship. Like, what do you mean if I have a German visa? Isabel, I was so shocked. That was in the first week of January, actually. Yeah, and this woman was asking me if I even have a job visa, or like, if I am allowed to work in Germany. And I was like, I am German. I don't get your question.
Read the application, maybe.
Yeah, she didn't check any documents. She said, oh, she was on leave. Like, it was her first day after holiday. And I was like,
okay.
Yep.
And finally, in rapid bias, how do I pronounce your name?
Yeah. I mean, in Laos, they actually say Khoulap. So Khoulap means rose in Laos, and also in Thailand and in Cambodia, I think it means rose. So Khoulap means actually rose. But in Germany, I always introduce myself with Khoulap, and I also identify more with Khoulap because, I don't know, I think because it kind of like gets converted into the German pronunciation, and that's why I'm used to it, that people and friends call me Khoulap. But when you go to Laos, actually, and to Thailand, they wouldn't understand, like Khoulap. And when you say, no, my name is Khoulap, then they say, oh, Khoulap, like the rose. And there's this karaoke song, Khoulap. And then, so in Laos, like everyone, like my family, my mom, my dad, they call me Khoulap. They don't say Khoulap, they say Khoulap. So that was always a difficult question at school, like, how do I pronounce your name? Khoulap.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's a good question to ask if they want to make sure they get your name right.
Exactly.
But then if they ask with the intention of making fun of your name, then that's always annoying. Or sometimes they might not even try. They just call you something completely different. Like I've heard some of my friends, like their names are always mispronounced, and it really bothers them. So, well, thank you so much for getting through this round of rapid bias. And now for us to conclude the episode, I am just wondering, like, this is what I ask most of my other Asian European guests in this special series as well. But for you, this will be specifically to do with German. Do you have one phrase that you want to teach our listeners in German?
One phrase. That's difficult, actually.
Or multiple phrases.
I think maybe when we are talking about food and everything, maybe I'm hungry. I would like to teach that. Ich habe Hunger.
Ich habe Hunger.
Exactly.
Oh,
like
did I get it right?
Ich means it was actually very good. Like ich means I, and habe means have, and I'm hungry. Maybe you see also the relations kinda. Ich habe Hunger. Actually, they spell it, they write it almost the same, like hungry, like HUN, and then GER, Hunger. Which comes from hunger. Yeah, ich habe Hunger. I am hungry. Like,
nice. Ich habe Hunger.
Yeah, that's in German, means I'm hungry.
Yes, we are always hungry. I mean, we have to learn this so we will never get hungry in Germany. We would just walk in and say, ich habe Hunger. And someone would just bring us food.
Yeah, or like how I'm, like, or typical Germans, they will look at you and then they will just,
they were like,
okay.
what?
And then,
what the fuck is wrong?
And then they just, what the fuck is wrong with her? And then they just walk away like Germans do.
So, okay, guys, like, just so you know, it might not work. Please don't randomly shout that on German streets.
But only when you're at family, maybe afternoon tea, or maybe having coffee cake or with friends, or like, I don't know, then you can say, ich habe Hunger, and then, okay, what do you want to eat? Like,
okay. And the next one is, I would like to ask for your music recommendation, because as you might know, we have this Collective Proudly Asian playlist on Spotify, which we invite our guests and listeners from around the world to contribute their song picks that either make them feel proudly Asian, or it's made by an Asian artist that deserves more attention. So I'm just wondering, like, what would be your pick for us to add to the playlist?
Yeah, so actually I only know the name of the singer, but not the title of the song. But it's a Thai singer who's called Loso. And I chose this specific song because when there was like Lao New Year, which is celebrated in April, and also I think it's not wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, I think Thai New Year as well in April. We always had like those events where from a Thai and Lao community, they rented like a location, and then they did their Bunt Pi Mai, which is like similar to the Chinese New Year, but like just Thai and Lao style, let's say. Right. And they always played this song, and then the Thai and Lao people were dancing like similar, like a line dance, but like just in the Lao way. And then they were dancing to the song. So I remember this since I was little, like that this song is like still played. And when you watched it on YouTube, it still has like over millions, like 16 millions, or like still like views, and people are still listening to this song. So that's why I chose this song by Loso, because it reminds me of the Lao New Year events which we had.
Wow. Yeah, I'll give it a listen after the recording. And finally, Khoulap, one last question for you. What does it mean to be proudly Lao German to you?
Wow. Yeah, I think it's crazy that the time has gone by so fast. I could talk to you like 3 hours. Is like, oh, this is the final question.
It just feels like two friends meeting up at a cafe on a Sunday,
really,
chatting.
It is because you make it so comfortable, actually, like as a safe space. Yeah, because it's just because we have the screen, but I could really imagine myself sitting with you somewhere in Hong Kong and just talking.
Or in Germany.
Or in Germany, or in Germany. What does it mean to be proudly Lao German? I would say maybe, what does it mean? Wow, that's really difficult. Okay, maybe I just grab it that way. I'm proud that I also even had like the opportunity or chance to have been growing up in Europe or even in Germany, to have, especially as a young woman, so many opportunities to become what I want to become, that I could choose, hey, what do I want to study? Where do I want to go? And I feel very privileged. And also, that I had this opportunity to even had this choice, because when I think about my mom growing up in Laos, it was completely different. But I'm also glad for the Lao side of me, of, I don't know, being more optimistic, being more thankful and grateful for what I have, also more down to earth, because I know how my grandpa and my dad came to Germany and what they achieved. And even being able to talk in Lao, like when I visit my grandma in the elderly home, I can speak Lao to her. I can speak with her about the weather, about the food, and that I feel grateful that my parents were so strict about it on talking Lao at home. And I didn't realize that, but now I'm thinking, hey, it's so cool that I can speak to my family members, or that I can travel to Laos by myself and just speak with the locals, And I think I'm very grateful for that I have like two kind of words in me, or that I get to live also in two different words, like experience that. So kind of I would answer the question that
absolutely. Like your grandparents and your parents probably did not have a choice. They had to flee the country, but just so that they could afford you the freedom and the choices that you currently have. So that is an absolutely beautiful message to leave this episode with. But thank you so much for sharing your time and story with us, Khoulap. And for those who are curious, please do check out Khoulap's podcast. If you understand German, great, you can listen to every single episode. But Khoulap is also doing more English episodes for our international audiences as well. But if you like this episode, please make sure that you follow this podcast, subscribe on YouTube, like it, give us a 5-star review, and I will see you very soon. Thanks again, Khoulap.
Thank you, Isabel, for having me. Bye-bye.
Great.
That's it for this episode of Proudly Asian. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at proudly.asian for more content. We are on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Leave us a 5-star review on wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for tuning in and signing off for now. I'm Isabel Wong.